Welcome to Game Crunch, your weekly video game podcast. My name is Mike Anastasia. With me today, we got Brandon.
Hi.
We're here to talk about games and things.
Games and things. Don't make me speak too much. Don't make me do things.
Yeah. Listeners, you may remember we talked about maybe doing Game of the Year this week, but Brandon's diseased, so we decided to push it back a week.
I'm diseased and my whole city is shut down because of the snow, so I can't even get medicine. Yay!
Yay! Well, we got games to talk about, so at least you got that to look forward to. So, and actually, surprisingly, I think news and game-wise makes sense because I have a new release to talk about, and the Switch 2 was unveiled this last week. So it's kind of works out better, I think, instead of waiting to talk about those things in a couple weeks. So
yeah. I will also say this, right? Because I want to just throw it out there. I didn't really play it, but I spent 30 minutes, experiencing it kind of. I got to try the PC version of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which came out literally today. So that gives you guys an idea of when we're actually recording. Yeah, it works really, really well. It looks incredible, and it sticks to between 60 and 120 FPS at all times. I didn't have it drop at all, and it has normally with these Square Enix titles, they tend to have frame rate locks, which really sucks. But this one, their frame rate locks aren't as bad because it's 60 FPS, 90 FPS, or 120 FPS, and I think that's a really good idea because when you're getting to 120 FPS and you're running it in 4K, you're already hitting a high refresh rate in a sense. So I think that's a really nice sweet spot, and I think it works really, really well, and it looks incredible. Especially compared to the console versions, it's a night and day difference. It is insane how well this game looks.
That's good. So at least they didn't.
They didn't fuck it up, and it's a Square Enix game. That's the main thing I'm trying to say. Square Enix fucks it up all the time, so the fact that they didn't fuck it up is impressive. And that's really all I have to say about it. I don't have much more right
now. Okay, very reasonable. Well, things I got to talk about: Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, brand new this last week. So, well, I guess brand new for the third time. So there is that. So I know I talked about Tropical Freeze last week because I played that before this. So something I did not realize is how the perception of this game has changed over the years. I remember when Tropical Freeze came out, everyone was they're it looks nicer, but it's not as good as Donkey Kong Country Returns. That is no longer the public opinion. It is now Donkey Kong Country Returns is the worst game, apparently. But I'll share my thoughts on that as well. I was surprised, but so let me just start by saying about this port and the port quality. So port is functional. I think it looks fine. It does the job, but it is definitely an average port. So it took the 3DS version, gave it some slightly better resolution, and that's your game. So they didn't really, like I said, it looks nicer, but they didn't go through some of the remasters and remakes. They didn't go through and update all the textures or things like that. The music quality is still the music, for example, on Tropical Freeze, excellent. The music on this game, it's not bad. It's good Donkey Kong Country remasters or remakes, but it's not using the same quality instrumentation that they had for Tropical Freeze. So it's kind of more system level instrumentation is what it sounds like.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question about this game. So I've been hearing reports that this is the 3DS version ported. And that's why a lot of the sound isn't very good. That's why a lot of the graphics from the original Wii version of the game are not in this version, because they just up-res imported the 3DS version, which already had inferior sound quality and graphics. Can you confirm or deny this?
I think some of the missing graphical effects are because of this. But I don't think it's as simple as the way that you worded it, because there definitely is some things that they went through and definitely changed. Like there's things that people have gone through and noticed, like, oh, they did add graphical effects here, they did add lighting effects here, they did change the water to look more realistic here and there. Um, so you have those kind of things, but then you have things that's like, well, the shadows, instead of being like, they're just like little circles now instead of like what they were. So it's kind of like you got some improvements, and then you have some stuff that obviously was kind of downplayed for the 3DS. Like this was not, like I said, some of the I saw this comment in a YouTube video, and it kind of stuck with me, and it makes sense. Like
Okay.
Nintendo usually doesn't label things as like blah 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 HD. Like that's and they were like, that's really telling about what they did with this. Like it is just an HD version. It's not a remake, it's not a remaster. It's we just kind of made it so it looks nice and widescreen, and it's functional, and you have basically the same game experience that you would have on, like, say, the Wii. But yeah, definitely, it's definitely for a game, especially when it's charged full price. Like, it's not, you're definitely not getting like the top end like cleanup, like you did on, say, Metroid Prime Remastered, which is the other game I'm going to be talking about this week. Like, this is definitely like a quick and dirty, like, let's get this game out. Like it's like I said, still functional, still plays really well, just definitely um not the best remaster, and not the there's some things that they could have optimized. Like the load times are a little longer in this game, for example. I think it was something like the average load time for like the Wii version was 8 seconds per stage. This one I think was 12, if I recall correctly. So things like that. There's some things that are just not as nice as some of the other versions of this game. But all said and done, they're also not major inconveniences either that make this so that this is like a lesser version to play. Like you still get overall the same experience. Um, so I mean, I do like this version overall. Like I think it is definitely a good playable version of this game. Just in terms of like ports, they're just kind of like, it's functional. It does what it needs to, but just nothing above and beyond like the what was asked of them, I guess is the best way to put it. So Nintendo wanted an HD version of Donkey Kong Country Returns. They got a HD version of Donkey Kong Returns with no frills and whistles. So, but because it is a 3DS port, it does include the new levels that were made for Donkey Kong Country Returns 3DS. So you do get those in there as well as some difficulty adjustments that they made. So one thing that I talked about last week was, if you recall, I was like, oh, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze was a lot harder than I remember it being. Uh, Donkey Kong Country Returns is a lot harder than I remember it being. I don't think I've touched this game since the Wii. This game definitely, and I do recall it as I was kind of going through it. I forgot how hard this game was. Like, this game was a very hard game when it came out, and it still retains a lot of that difficulty that they had in there. So that's good. And while I would say, especially if you're going to compare these, side by side with Tropical Freeze, for example, definitely does not look as nice. Definitely does not sound as nice. But I do think the one thing that this game does well, I think its level design is better. I think it's more creative. But at the end of the day, I think Tropical Freeze is probably the more approachable and more balanced game. Like the checkpoints are better in Tropical Freeze. The Tropical Freeze is more forgiving in some ways. This game is definitely it's challenge. So I think it's a lot of fun. I do think the stuff that they do with the levels is so much more creative, though. Like the level design, they clearly had a lot of better ideas with this game and what they were thinking and planning on doing. Everything's themed very well. So you have I think much more distinct themes between the worlds compared to Tropical Freeze. Tropical Freeze, it felt like a lot of the levels you could swap them in between like the different areas, and you probably wouldn't notice too much. These ones are like, if you're in the factory, that stage looks like a factory. If you are in the seaside, those levels all look like you're in the seaside. So that I think is nice. And even the bonus stages, which, if you remember when I talked about them in Tropical Freeze, I was like, they're bland and very, very much the same. I do think there's a little bit more variety here, but they even made sure to like theme those stages so they looked like they were the areas that they're supposed to be from, which you didn't get in Tropical Freeze. They all look the same. Um, so I would say mileage overall, I think mileage may vary on this game for some people. But I think at the end of the day, especially if you're not taking price into consideration, like it's a lot of fun. It is a fun game, and I think people will enjoy it, especially if they like challenge. Like I think this is a very challenging game. Uh, but it's kind of funny because it's after it came out before Tropical Freeze by a few years, so definitely not as balanced. But there is a modern mode that's available in this game. So actually, I probably should say so things that are if you were like me and had not played this since the Wii, some things that are available that are new compared to the other ones. You have the 3DS stages are available. There's 8 new stages created for the 3DS. Those are available. It also is what they call like a modern mode, which is kind of like funky mode in some ways, like Tropical Freeze had. It does give you an extra heart for each character, which does help with the balance a little bit more. It also does give you more items that you can purchase at Cranky's shop. So, in 2 ways, you can bring more inventory with you into levels to use if you want to. And it also, I believe, if I recall, the green balloon, which lets you survive a fall, and there's some potion that protects you from damage while you're in a vehicle. Those, I believe, were not available in the original game, but they are available here. They
Okay.
were items that were added in Tropical Freeze. But yeah, those are kind of helpful to have if you want to use them. Um, but yeah, I mean, otherwise, I did have a lot of fun with it. I like that the music definitely lackluster because it's not a lot of original music. Although
hmm
I do have to say, like the barrel music is like, one of my favorite songs. Like I absolutely love that song.
hmm
Um, and it's because it's just so dramatic and jazzy. You know which one I'm talking about, right?
Sort of, but I'm
Sort
just
of,
gonna look it
yeah.
up right now.
Yeah, it's in Smash Brothers even too. Like it's just and they did remake it for Tropical Freeze as well. But that I think that might be the only kind of like I'm sure there's a couple original songs. That one sticks out to me. But otherwise it's lots of like the nice kind of like chill Donkey Kong Country music too. That's kind of remade. Like I said, not
Uh,
as nice with the instrumentation, but a lot of fun. So do you have any questions on Donkey Kong Country Returns otherwise?
no, no, I do not.
So and then the other thing I played, which I talked about so briefly last week, was actually I went through and not only picked up where I started at the beginning of Prime, but I demolished it like in
Nice.
the last week. So finished the Prime Remastered again for the Switch. Um, and I do have to say, like just kind of first off that Metroid Prime Remastered has no business looking as good as it does. Like that game is even just now. When I played through this last week, even a year or so since the game's come out,
hmm
um, probably closer to 2. Like it still looks incredible. Like they did such a good job with updating that game. Samus looks so nice. Textures look so nice. The environments look so nice. Um, just very happy with it. I did switch back to pointer controls after we talked last time, and those
hmm
just felt so much nicer. It was so much nicer playing with pointer style controls. And then I was using the hybrid control style when I was in handheld or on my pro controller, and I really enjoyed that as well. Because that one I think is kind of more closer to how it played on the GameCube with gyro that way. Otherwise, the pointer controls those play kind of like the Wii version. They really do give you the options to control it any such way that you want to. It's great. Another thing that was nice with this, which I actually don't think I never noticed it before, and I don't think if I recall the other versions of Prime doing this. But it actually does allow you to when you restart a game afterwards, you actually can carry your scans over. So you don't have to rescan everything again if you like to scan things. I realized when I booted it up this time, I'm like, I didn't scan anything last time. So I was like, oh, why don't I go through and just start scanning shit? So I actually went through and scanned like 80% of the things that were in the game. I was thinking about it too, though, because I was like, I'm like, I know I've talked about it before, but when this game came out, I was like, I was just kind of, just for like a hobby. I was doing some like video game like reviewing, and I reviewed
hmm
for one website. I think I gave Metroid Prime when it came out on the GameCube a 7, if I recall. Um,
Yikes.
Yeah. And I was like, do I still agree with that opinion now that it's been re-released, what, 3 times later? And I've played that game, I don't know, probably 5 or more times. Like I'm very familiar with it. Um, and I was like, you know what? There are some things that they did definitely improve from that time. I was thinking about it. I was like, things that are better. Load times are better, graphics
Hmm.
are better, controls are significantly better. It's a
Yeah,
huge difference from the GameCube controls, like the original,
I
to
I will say
anything
I think
new.
the GameCube controller is one of the best controllers that's ever been made, though. So
I
like,
mean, there's nothing wrong with the controller. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the controls for the game.
okay, it's been so
Just
long, I don't know. I don't remember what they are. So
so it was basically the way it worked was um the left stick was your movement, the C stick changed items. To aim, you had to hold down, you had to basically kind of stop and like hold the R button down. Almost like kind of like GoldenEye-esque controls. Um and then fire was A, jump was B, missiles were X, I think, something like that. And then the other one was Morph Ball. I think Y was Morph Ball, if I remember. Um, but yeah, it was just a bit clunky if you needed to aim for something that wasn't in like your plain sight. That could be a little tricky. Granted, you were able to kind of lock onto things, which did give you like some movement range and things like that, which did help. But it was a bit clunky. It worked, but it clunky. Um, so I would say, those are things that were all fixed with kind of the subsequent versions. Like the new one, even just aside from the pointer controls and that hybrid controls I mentioned, they do offer GameCube controls. You can even play, I believe, with an actual GameCube controller if you have the the parts to do it. And then they also added a dual stick control mode as well, so you can control it more like a traditional first person shooter. Um, so those are all things that I think work very nicely with this game. But I also realized too, there are some things that still piss me off about this game. I hate the backtracking of this game. I and it's not the whole game, not all of the backtracking that frustrates me. It's that stupid thing that they did back in the 2000s, which I feel like every game around that time did. It was those stupid end of the game fetch quests where they're like, let's pad out the game by having you collect arbitrary items. Um, which they did in this game. They're like, yeah, there's 12 keys you have to go find across all of these areas on Talon 4. Like, I don't want to go back into the fucking depths of the Phazon mines, which I just spent a shit ton of time in, to go and find a stupid key, uh, to go back and use that so that I can go back to the temple, get the next clue to the next thing, and then go from there. Like it's really frustrating. It's there's definitely ways that they could have done it. So, like, if you could collect those things as you go through, that would have been a lot better. But you can't. And you can't even get the clues for a lot of them until you start kind of advancing through. So it really creates some obstacles. Like for me, I play the game so much. Like some of the things I can remember where they are, or I can recall where most of those keys are, like off the top of my head. But it's like, okay, when I'm in Fendrena Drifts where you have to use where there's that one by the towers, like you have to have the plasma cannon, but you can't get that until pretty much the end of the game. Well, after you're there, you have to go back through the dark areas where there's no lights. You have to use the thermal visor to get there, just to get it, and either go back further into a deeper area in Fendrena Drifts to get the other key that you can't get until the end of the game because you don't have the grappling hook when you're there the first time, or um, come back to it later. Like it's that stupid backtracking that really pisses me off every time I play it. If I could have done it the first time through, just because you didn't put a stupid like item lock there, that would have been fine. But no, like it really kind of it makes people go all these back and forth needlessly. Um, so that is very frustrating. Um, Still, I probably at this day and age, I would put it somewhere either like 8.5. It's probably where I would ideally put it. I still think it's a good game. I definitely think it's an important game. I think it's a good 3D Metroid game. Um, but there's definitely some 2000s bullshit that needs to go away. And actually, even kind of remember, it reminded me too when we were talking about timeless games when we were doing the game debate a couple weeks ago. Uh, I was thinking about how you were like, oh, I think Wind Waker's more timeless than Ocarina of Time. And then I remembered these stupid arbitrary fetch quests. And I remembered how bad that Triforce fetch quest was in Wind Waker.
Listen. I understand, but I,
I almost think the fetch quest in Wind Waker is more atrocious than the one in Metroid Prime. I forgot, I blacked it out. And when the Wii U version of the game
yeah, when they fixed everything, yeah, I
sugar
know.
coated it a lot more.
Yeah,
But man, the GameCube one was bad because you couldn't even like hold all. You had to collect a shit ton of rupees too, like and
I
like
know.
you couldn't even hold them
I
all in your wallet. You had to spend them and then go get more. I was like, oh, I
I
forgot how bad this was.
I know. I just think overall, I think I have personally more nostalgia for it, and it's aged better for me. That's just
Yeah,
my opinion.
I mean it's fair.
Like I look at, okay, so here's a problem I have, right? I look at a N64 game and a PlayStation 1 game, and one of them I think has one like system. I think their games have vastly, vastly improved with age. Like I can look back at those games and I understand what I'm looking at,
Mhm.
and I understand everything, and there's a coherency to them and everything. Like obviously, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time looks great. It's one of those games that's a classic and everything. But then I think about a lot of the stuff in that game, like just how big the world is or feels. But then when you go back and play it, it's not. It's really not, and everything feels so small now. It's almost like, as a kid you had that all the wonder and amazement because you didn't know it was out there. But then when you look at it as an adult, you're kind of jaded and you're kind of just like, yeah, I know. I go do this. I go do that. And it's just like all like ingrained in me.
Oh yeah.
When I look at like PlayStation 1 games that have re-release, say on like
Mhm.
PS5 or something and everything, you got things like Ape Escape. I know exactly what I'm looking at there. I know how
Mhm.
to play that game. It feels kind of modern if you still play that game. Yes, you have a bit of tank controls and everything to it,
Mhm.
but like it still feels modern, like gameplay wise in some sense. And going back and playing that game just feels better in my opinion. Overall, it just feels like a better game to play. I feel like a lot of N64 games have been lost to time because of both the technology and the gameplay mechanics that a lot of them had.
Mhm.
But I would sit down and I would play like Wipeout or Ape Escape or Parappa the Rapper or like fucking Jammer Lammy or Medieval, which just had the second game release on PS5 also, as well as
Very
the
nice.
first one was already on there. So it's like,
Mhm.
or Twisted Metal, like all of those games I think aged incredibly well. I don't think like Quest 64 or even in my opinion, even though it is timeless, I don't think Mario 64 aged well, at all.
No, I know. I know. We were talking about that one too.
Yeah,
But I was also thinking about this the other day because I forgot about this too, and you just reminded me because this is the same thread of thought that I was
yeah,
thinking
go
about.
for it.
And as much as I was like, you know what, this Mario 64, yeah, definitely, it's an important game. It
It's
definitely
an
didn't
important
age
game.
well
You
all the
like
way.
look at it and you're like, I recognize what this is.
Yeah.
I understand what this is. I think this is something that I will always remember, like fucking Jolly Roger Bay's music, that sort of
Oh
thing. You
yeah.
you'll always remember that shit. It's something that's ingrained in you from your childhood. But then you
100%.
like look at it now and you're just like, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Like I'll
sometimes
watch
like
people speedrun it because it's very fun to watch.
yeah.
Because it's like bite size. But actually
Mhm.
sitting down and like playing through the game in its entirety, it's just like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll just go hop in and I'll just be like, I'll go and do like my favorite stars and then be
Hmm.
like, all right, peace out.
Yep, that's enough
Um,
for me. But I
yeah,
could finish
but
like all of Silent Hill or all of like Ape Escape in
uh,
like 4 hours. So like,
mhm,
it's not that
yeah,
big of a ask. And I get it if you're like really good at speedrunning like Mario 64. Yeah, you can obviously do that as well. But
yeah.
like the archaic nature of the way those games handle when you play them, they feel like they're fighting you every step
Mhm.
of the way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, kind of. Although that's I feel more like that with Sunshine a lot of ways, and I kind of even had the realization yesterday that like I'm like so
I don't
I
even
wasn't even playing
disagree
it.
because of like the pachinko level. Like the pachinko level is really bad in Sunshine,
Well, it is, but
and then so is the boss battle with the uh the stingray in that
uh-huh.
like that. Those two,
Oh yeah, that's
hundred
fucking
percent agreed.
annoying. I hate
Hundred
that.
percent agreed.
But the problem with it is like the thing that irritated me the most about Sunshine when I was thinking
Mhm,
about it just this last week
mhm,
was that like if I'm playing Mario 64 and I don't want to do like I don't know, like let's say like the first race with Koopa the Quick in like the first world,
mhm.
kind of where he's just there. I like you could skip that star and you could just be like, all right, I'm just gonna do something else. Problem with like something like Sunshine is
Mhm.
that you have to do you are forced to get those 7 stars in every or 7 shines, I apologize, in every of in all those main worlds, and then all the extra stars don't fucking do a thing. Like you don't need them.
Yeah,
And I just like it's like because like it's like the pachinko level. It's like if I wanted to like waste my time doing it, like there's no benefit. Like I don't get
yeah.
anything from it. It's like, oh, you got 51 shines instead
I
of
mean, you
50
have
to
those
beat the
like
game.
levels where your flood is taken from you and you're forced to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, they could be fun. And but the thing is, it's like all the bone anything that's not those 7 stars in those worlds, like there's no benefit. Like
Like,
if you're gonna collect all of them and do like the 120 or whatever, like okay, you can get a fancy screenshot at the end of the game to be like, you
mhm.
did everything. But like that's it. Like it doesn't unlock anything. You don't get any extra benefits to it. It doesn't make it so that you progress towards the end any faster if you do it. Like nothing. Like there's no trade-off for it. And I was like, that kind of sucks. Because like, if I wanted to skip stars in Mario 64, be like, oh, you know what? I really don't like because usually, like, for example, like I really hate the flying carpet level at the end with the rainbows. Like, I don't like that level. So usually I never do it. And same thing with the clock. I don't ever do that level either. Like I skip them. But like with Sunshine, like you would have to do them. You would have to do those levels. And like if you found something fun like the slide, like the Peach slide or whatever, like you don't get any benefit for doing it. Like it doesn't get you any closer to fighting Bowser. It's just kind of like a like it's like hey, there's all these things to do, but there's no benefit. I don't
Okay,
know.
I think there's something we could agree on though. Like
Mm-hmm.
moving away from both these games.
Yeah.
Galaxy 1 and 2 are fucking peak. They're just
Oh
they're
yeah.
so good. Both
Yeah.
those
They're
games.
fantastic.
I don't really have
They fixed
complaints
all
about
those
those
issues with
like
both of
at
those
all.
games. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they're perfect. Yeah, and they
Yeah.
do a good job with the controls. They're very nice. They let you play. You feel a benefit to every star that you get in those levels. Like, and they're very creative. They control really well. They look really nice. Yeah, no, I agree with you. They definitely like
Yeah.
they figured out what they were doing about by that time.
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
yes. So, anyways, that was quite the detour, but
No,
um.
I mean we got a lot to talk about today, and I got to make up for the entire day I missed. So, I mean,
So
we do have a lot to talk about. We already kind of went through that, so that
mm,
was just a little detour, real quick.
yeah. But anyways, yeah. So Metroid Prime Remastered, excellent. Like I said, I do think that this version, like especially over it's probably been like 20 years now since the first game came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely they've made some progress there, but yeah, just kind of there's still some things that are frustrating, but it's more of a statement of how the game was at that time. So and I think even too like because what was it? Prime 3 had the fetch quest as well. Um, but that one kind of lets you if you knew what you were doing and you used because it was the fuel tanks in Metroid Prime 3, if you remember, that was the fetch quest there. If you knew what you were doing with the fuel tanks, you didn't have to get them all. You didn't have to know where they all were, and you kind of you could pick and choose a little bit. You could use a little strategy to kind of help with that end game there. But yeah, I'm so glad that this is not a common thing anymore because it was definitely around the time that those games came out, very commonplace. I also feel like the one in Prime 2 was even worse, if I recall, because it had you going between light and dark worlds, and you had to figure out which, or no, they were all in the dark world, and sometimes they were in like strange places. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will revisit that later this year when I get to it, because like I said, my plan is to play through all of them before 4 comes out. So
You think
2 and
4's
3.
out this year?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll talk about it more.
You think it'd be a launch title or a launch window?
Well, we'll talk about when we get to the Switch 2 stuff.
Yeah, okay.
We can keep that all together.
Yeah,
But that's all I've been playing as it is. Did you have anything that you want to talk about?
No, I'm just gonna chime in on a bunch of this news stuff. That's what I'm gonna do.
So, yeah, so I guess we'll move into it. The only thing I put down, and I know you probably have some other things to talk about too there, but so Switch 2 was officially, the hardware was officially unveiled this last week. They finally gave in and showed us what we already knew. It looks exactly like
it's exactly the leaks that we saw already.
Exactly.
It's like, literally the same thing.
The colors, everything, like it is identical. Like
these models were literally just the actual thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were definitely from the factory, like the real molds that they used, like it was identical. So I think the system looks nice. It's a little bit larger. From you can see the buttons seem to be a little bit larger overall. There's magnetic clips for the side for the new Joy-Cons to go in. So there's that. There are some features that are known or speculated about on the system. It does look like it has a microphone on the system built into the system now, which was not there before. That was something that we knew. It does look like confirmed that at least it does look like they confirmed that the Joy-Con can be used like a mouse based on
it does look like it the way they showed it. The other thing I saw that was really fun was someone saying, "Damn, Nintendo's flaunting their Joy-Con drift this time."
Supposedly, the rumor is that they're Hall joysticks this time.
Well, no, it's because when they showed the like Joy-Cons and they came off and then did like the mouse thing, they were literally drifting like a car drifts. So people were making fun of it, saying that they were flaunting their Joy-Con drift this time.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's funny. But yeah, so I mean, it seems like exactly like we thought. The other thing that they did show off with it as well was they did show what appears to be a new Mario Kart.
Yeah, I'm gonna tentatively just say Mario Kart 9, but you know.
Yeah, I labeled it. I don't know if you saw how I labeled it on our Game of the Year talk because it will come up. But I called it Mario Kart, and then I just put in parentheses Switch 2.
Yeah,
because
I did see that.
Depending on how they consider those,
they could do the thing where they're like, "Oh, we're just gonna call it Mario Kart," like several other fucking companies have done with their games.
They could also. There's speculation that they might call it Mario Kart 10 because of Tour.
Okay.
So don't know what they're gonna call it. So Nintendo's all over the place. They've only numbered one of them, Mario Kart 8. Like none of the other ones are numbered. So who knows? Who knows what they're going with it?
Isn't 7?
Oh yeah, 7. I forgot about 7. Yes, that one. But the other ones were DS.
That is a 3DS game,
64.
Right?
Yeah, 7 was the 3DS game. 8 was the Switch.
I'm just saying we're trying to catch up to Mario Kart 64 because we got to get all the games in between that.
Yeah.
So they gotta
if they ever get up that far, will they skip it and just call it Mario Kart?
I think it'd be really funny if they did.
Yeah. Or call it Mario Kart 64 like 2. I don't know.
My God, that'd be fucking hilarious.
Yeah. So it would be. So, but yeah, so Switch 2 is officially like known now. They did they did say that there's going to be a direct in April. That's going to be kind of more of the official kind of showing, which is kind of what we speculated before it was announced. That they were going to follow a very similar timetable and unveiling for the Switch 2 like they did for the original, which seems to be the case. Which also, kind of leads speculation that that the system will probably launch in May or June, which seems to kind of be in line with everything we know. As for your Metroid Prime, I definitely think it's going to come out on the Switch because they unveiled it for the Switch. They called it a Switch game when they showed it off. If that wasn't the case, I think that they would not have done so. So I think it's definitely coming for the Switch, but it would not surprise me if it's a Switch 2 game as well. Interestingly, also, there was a Newegg listing for the Switch 2 that had popped up, and in its text, they put in there that there's a new Mario Kart, a new 3D Mario coming, and a Zelda remaster. Which seems kind of random for them to put out of nowhere.
Yeah. So the remaster is Tears of the Kingdom.
It's probably Breath of the Wild, actually. If you remember, there was a rumor that they were showing that off with the hardware at one point. So it wouldn't surprise me. Also, too, I mean, for what it's worth, I do think Breath of the Wild, at the end of the day, probably actually will go down as like a timeless Zelda game. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but
It's
it's
not
kind of
mine.
a big deal. No, I know. Uh,
I couldn't even finish Tears of the Kingdom. I really want to play it, but like that game performed like hot ass on the Switch. I'm waiting for
I
the
did not
Switch
have
2
the
to play
same
through it.
issues that you did, but I know we've talked about it a couple times. I don't know if it's a difference in just terms of like the hardware and stuff that we
I think
use.
I'm gonna be 100% honest with you.
Hmm.
I think my standards for quality are much higher than yours, and I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean that as I'm more susceptible to frame rate drops because
Oh yeah.
I play
Mhm.
at higher frame rates in pretty much every single game I play.
That's
So
a really
like,
good point too, which I actually don't think we've ever really talked
yeah,
about because I
yeah,
play mostly on like the Switch,
yeah,
or
exactly.
on like your console. So I'm very much used to the 30,
Yeah,
occasionally 60 frames a second, whereas you're
yeah.
more on the usually 60, sometimes even higher, as you were
Oh,
talking about with Final Fantasy.
nightly I have like 200 to
Hmm.
400 FPS on my like
Yeah.
main games
So
I play. So like
when you're
I'm
going
used
down
to,
to,
you
even if it's
know,
a stable 30
really,
frames a second, it looks
yeah,
like it. Yeah.
it
Mhm.
looks like horseshit. And that's
Yeah.
like nothing against the game itself. It's just my standards are way higher. And I don't, and again, like I said, that's nothing against you. It's just you don't know.
No.
I think one day you'll play a game that's like super high frame rate, or maybe even the Switch too. We'll have like games that are pretty much locked 60, and you'll be like, "Holy shit! How did I ever play Switch games?"
So, well, so, I mean, who knows? Maybe with like the DLSS or whatever they're
Yeah,
doing for that kind of thing, you
yeah,
might end up getting something like that. But I was
hmm
also kind of like reading a lot of stuff too, where they're like where the power is kind of theorized to be. They're like a lot of people are speculating that it's probably not unreasonable that it might get like anything if it can go to the Series X, it may be able to go to the
Series
Switch
S.
too. Oh yes, sorry, Series S.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because they're like at that point, because of all the nonsense between the three systems, or I
yeah,
guess four systems at this point now, like
yeah,
the Pro, 5 Pro, S,
yeah,
and X. Uh, there's so much like kind of range there, and
hmm
things are built to like have stuff on and off now, like they had
yeah,
not been previously. That they're like at this point, it's kind of just once you drop the resolution for the Switch 2 and maybe take out a couple lighting effects from the Series S games,
yeah.
probably not unreasonable to play on the Switch 2 with the DLSS.
I don't
I'm
even
like,
think
oh,
lighting
that's
would
a
be
good
a
point.
problem if you didn't do the ray tracing version. I think you'd be totally fine. So
And
like,
that's what a lot of people are saying online. They're like, once you
yeah,
take out a lot of the more advanced lighting stuff,
yeah.
probably reasonable.
So most games on the Series S, not the X, but the S, don't have ray tracing. So I even further along what you're saying, I think you could
Mhm.
probably just directly port like games that run on Series S straight to Switch. Like
Yeah.
not obviously from the Series S, but I'm just saying
Uh,
like they would have the same kind of uh, hardware capability,
yeah.
mostly because not because of the hardware that's inside the console, but because of like DLSS, because
Hmm.
DLSS is a very scalable AI upscaler, and I do think, I mean, as much as I don't like it,
Uh,
uh, I do know that there's very obviously um, uses for it, and it
yeah.
would be foolish to like pretend that there isn't. But
Hmm.
like, yeah, a handheld with DLSS, you're not going to see those imperfections that you would see on like a major console. So I think a handheld with DLSS is a fantastic idea. And yes, I know most people will probably play their Switch 2 docked, but I do think that the fact that you'll have that option of playing it handheld, the imperfections that you would otherwise see with DLSS will pretty much evaporate if you were to
Hmm.
play it
I
um,
agree.
handheld instead of docked
And I would
because of
even
the
say
screen real
too.
estate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of one of the things that definitely has worked really well for
Hmm
Nintendo because just the portability and the ease of use of the Switch just really was a huge factor for a lot of people.
Oh,
And
dude, when I went on a trip during the holidays,
mhm,
I took my Switch with me, and I used that to watch YouTube. I used that to like play games on the Switch. I
yeah,
used that to do all sorts of things because it's very convenient, and I do think that convenience is really nice to have.
yeah, exactly. So it really, I think that the big thing that will be important for the Switch 2, and we'll TBD, we'll see how it is because we
Yeah.
it's a tale as old as time in terms of developers, but I think a lot of it's really going to come down to optimization. Like
Yeah.
you're developing for one platform, you want to optimize it for that platform.
Hmm.
And if they do well with that, I think those companies that do well with it, and the ones that
Hmm.
we've seen do well with it in the past,
Hmm.
will probably really knock it out of the park. Like someone like ID,
id
like
Tech
id Software.
is id
Yeah.
Tech software, whatever the fuck they're
Mhm.
called now. They are insane at what they can
Oh
do
yeah.
with the
Mhm.
technology that's given to them. Did you know I got Doom Eternal running on my Steam Deck at 30 FPS? 30
Uh-huh.
FPS, granted, but with ray tracing on high settings
Hey,
on a
that's
Steam
impressive.
Deck?
Yeah.
That's insane. So, like, I think id Tech, or I guess id Software is what they're going by now. I love
Mhm.
id. I love them. We'll talk about them in just a little bit because holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they are really good when it comes to scaling games.
Mhm.
I think they're better than Capcom. I think a lot of people really give Capcom like the crown for game scaling, but I think
Uh-huh.
it is far better in my opinion.
Yeah. No, there are definitely some companies that do an excellent job with it. It's like which ones do and which
Oh
ones
yeah.
don't. But those are the ones you're really going to see shine well with the Switch 2. And I think, and I was thinking about this week too, but I kind of realized it the other day, like Nintendo just kind of, and I don't know any other way to describe it than this, but like they've kind of coming into this year kind of slid into like a golden age of Nintendo that we haven't seen since like the 80s. Like
Why is
they're
that?
so, and that's what I was gonna say. They really are, and I think more so than even what we saw. Like, I mean, Nintendo's had some generations where they've done really well, like the
Hmm.
Wii generation, for
Hmm.
example. Like,
Hmm.
it was one of the best selling systems of all time. They had a lot of software, but they were, there are definitely some limitations there, and there definitely was some limitations in terms of like how much of the gaming audience and how much of the general population that they reached even there. But kind of with where they are in the Switch generation going into the Switch 2, like think about this. Switch was one of the most successful systems of all time. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Until Sony found like 60,000 more PS2s that were sold somehow.
yeah, somehow. They're like, oh yeah, we forgot about the ones that we dropped off in Africa. Yeah. Um, so things like that. But anyways, but still, regardless, one of the best selling systems of all time, and definitely the most of the most recent generations. Like
Mhm.
definitely a big thing. They're going really high off of that into what seems to be a well received successor. So you have that. But also compared to like say the Wii generation, like this is kind of the big differences here though. Nintendo has their software development streamlined.
Mhm.
Basically, for this last generation, they've been able to get off a first party title almost monthly, um, going back years. Like they have a very solid software pipeline, and just kind of because Nintendo likes to sit on a lot of their titles, like
Mhm.
we know that we know or at least can assume that their bigger studios have stuff that should be ready to come up all around launch time. So obviously we're already talking about Mario Kart. Mario Kart 8, I think, may be the best selling game of all time. If it's not, it's really freaking close. Um, that game is sold incredible. So for them to have Mario Kart 9 up there, incredible. You think about the Odyssey team, they should be due for a new game, like we just talked about. There is a rumored 3D Mario. So it makes sense that we will see something from that team coming up. Um, so you have all that kind of that software consolidation. We also know that this year we have new Metroid Prime coming out, which is very hot. We have Pokemon Legends, which I'm very excited about. I know it's not a big Pokemon title. It is a big Pokemon title, but it's going to be a big deal. But also coming into Switch 2, the 10th generation of Pokemon should likely be, they're expecting it next year.
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of there too. So they obviously, like I said, they have their software teams kind of there, and we know that they have big hitters coming out relatively soon and this year. So that's kind of there too. But also, Nintendo's really starting to proliferate other things that are coming out this year, which you probably forgot about because I did. The Mario Brothers movie 2 is, I believe, expected this
I
year.
didn't know that was even happening. Holy
Yep.
shit.
So that should be coming up on the pipeline. Super Mario, the Universal Studios theme park, like
Nice.
that. The Florida one's supposed to open this year. They had the Donkey Kong expansion coming to Japan, and that. So it's Nintendo's
Damn.
proliferating like into the mainstream beyond video games, even, and kind
Yeah.
of like expanding. Like they're like one of the most successful companies in Japan. Like they're really firing on all cylinders right now, and they're like I think that they're going to continue to be really successful with the Switch too, assuming they don't make any dramatic missteps. Which I mean, still could happen, but at least right
All they
now
gotta
things are
do is
lined up.
focus on having games that run well and
Exactly.
allowing me to
Mhm.
play the games that I already own that didn't run well.
Yeah, and so that
Like
just kind of.
if I can play Astral Chain at 60 FPS on the Switch 2, it's done. This is the best. That's all you need. That's all I need. That and Bayonetta 3, because Bayonetta 3
Bayonetta
is
3
so
has some issues even beyond the like the system limitations. Like I we'll see. I will say though, I'm actually really curious to see what they end up doing with the old software, because I even had that thought too, because I was like,
mhm.
I'm like, oh, I'm like, because I finished up Metroid Prime and I finished up, like I said, the Donkey Kong. I'm like, well, what am I
Yeah,
gonna play next? And there are some Switch games that crossed my mind, and I was like, but I'm like, maybe I'll wait to see, what's going on with the Switch too, because I'm like, if there's improvements to them, with the new platform, I'm like, why not just wait and see kind of what's going on there
yeah.
before I
That's
jump into it.
I
So,
literally have been thinking, like you may have noticed, like, and you'll
mhm,
also notice from this year's game of the year that we're going to be doing next week. I have not a single Switch game on my list because I didn't play any because
yeah, no,
I'm
same.
waiting. I am literally waiting because there's going to be so much stuff for me to play that if it runs better on the Switch 2, I won't even have to focus on new Switch 2 games. I can just
Yeah,
play
exactly.
old
Hmm.
games that I
Yeah.
already own or
Hmm.
that I can get for cheaper because they're
Yeah.
Switch 1 games.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's
No, it
my
makes
current
total sense.
stance on the
Hmm.
Switch 2 right now. It's going to be a way for me to play games in the state that they initially should have been when the Switch originally released them.
Yeah.
That's my whole thoughts on the
Hmm.
console right now. Like I'm already sold on the system. I don't need to see anymore. I'm just going to buy it. All right,
Hmm.
it's simple as that. Is that a very consumerism and like very much against what I say most of the time? 100%. I'm absolutely being biased, but I love handheld systems.
Hmm.
And if Nintendo proves to me that, like, barring anything awful, like if I
Hmm.
see something where it's like this shit's running at like 15 FPS and I could tell,
Yeah.
and you're showing it off to me to like promote your new games or your new console, that's when I'm gonna be like, hold up, pump the fucking brakes. Or if the system's price is like fucking 500 and up, no
Hmm.
fucking way, it's not
Oh yeah.
happening.
No.
Um,
I
but
still think,
like
and we talked about it last week, I still think that price is going to be $3.99 or
I think
less.
so too. I
Mhm.
think so
So,
too. I think it's 350 and 399 if you get Mario Kart.
mhm,
That's what I think is happening. Yeah, I'm very excited for this new tech, and I
mhm,
really want it to be good because I want to play my old games in a
yeah.
playable state. Like
Mhm,
I would love to, because you dived really hard into this series, and I find it very hard to play this series in the state that it's currently in. Again, it is mostly a stable 30 FPS, but even a stable 30 FPS to me, as I've already said, just doesn't
yeah.
feel that good to
Mhm,
play. It just doesn't look that good to play. And that's the entire Xenoblade saga. Like all of
oh yeah.
them, like all three.
Mhm,
I want to sit down and play all of those. But,
mhm,
you know, I don't want to play them on the Switch
yeah. No, yeah.
right now. I tried playing Xenoblade 2 on the Switch. I really enjoyed my time with it, but it felt like it was very much hampered by the tech that it was on. I really liked those games when I installed them via emulation and tried them on my PC. They were great. I look forward to playing them on the Switch too.
Mhm,
It's as simple as that. I mean, just don't
yeah.
fuck it up. That's all it
So
is. Just
exactly.
make sure backwards compatibility works correctly and don't fuck it up. And then you go.
Yeah.
I'm sold. It's easy as
Mhm,
that.
yeah. And they did. I think they even kind of reconfirmed again that backwards compatibility is in for the Switch too. They did say that there are some games that may
There are some
not.
titles that do not support it.
But I was
We don't know what
even
those are or what that means. So
Well,
Like, is it gonna be something fucking like Wii Sports? I mean, Switch Sports, or some like those specific games, or is it gonna be something like, oh, we didn't upgrade it to Switch 2? Like, that's what I'm curious about. Is it gonna be like a blanket where all the games work, but like there's specific ones that include peripherals that don't work with the Switch 2, or is it like going to be only some are picked and chosen, similar to like the PS5 Pro?
So I think, if I want to say too, I want to say they said it was kind of limited by certain accessories. Um, so I have some speculation on my own.
Let's hear it.
So there's one game that I know for sure 100% will not work correctly on the Switch 2. Like there's no way around it. It is 100%. And Nintendo doesn't even have to confirm or deconfirm. Like, I just, and it's the Labo stuff. Because a lot of that was made for like the Switch form itself, and there's no way around it. Like, the Switch 2 is bigger. It's not going to fit in the same like VR headset cardboard box that the original one did. So that game definitely, like, I mean, I guess technically it will run, but you can't do what you want to do with it. So like, it doesn't make any sense. So that one definitely is one. But I actually think that may be the only one.
You don't think like the fitness? God, why can't I think of it? Ring Fit?
So this is the reason why I think that will still work. There was some speculation prior, and at least based on Nintendo's history, this makes sense. That Switch controllers will work with the Switch 2. If that's the case, then that thing that could limit it should be fine, because you should just be able to sync your Switch Joy-Cons to it and just use it that way. So a lot of the limitations that you run into could be corrected with that. Kind of the example that someone I actually saw, I think it was a Game Explained video kind of talking about something similar recently, but they were like, this might sound like strange, but if you think back, we Wii games, or sorry, Wii controllers worked on the Wii U. GameCube games worked on, or GameCube controllers worked on the Wii. Like, they have had a lot of backwards compatibility with those hardware aspects of things. Things do tend to carry over, and also even on the Switch, like if you bought like a Switch Lite, like theoretically it'd be like, oh, I can't play. Trying to think, something that, like, well, I guess the fitness game would be a good example.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, you can't detach the Joy-Cons on the Lite. Well, you can't, but if you sync another Joy-Con to your Switch, then you can just do it that way. Which is that, so you can play those games that way. You just have to sync an actual Joy-Con to it.
I see.
So the limitation may just be like those ones where it's like physically constrained, like the actual hardware just doesn't work with it. So that would be kind of like the Labo or similar things. But a lot of the other kind of stranger accessory things may just be fine if you just use a Switch controller with it. So you may actually end up not being that limited by it. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, so there's that. But yeah, I agree. I agree with what I had said and kind of what you were saying. Like, but I think this is Nintendo's game to lose at this point going into this generation.
They're gonna have to fuck it up really hard.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's not put it past Nintendo to fuck it up really hard, but I'm hoping that they don't.
No, I hope that they don't either. And I also think too, just kind of with their software consolidation and just kind of where things are, I think that they're setting themselves up for. I think 2025 is going to be like a really good year for them. Just from the stuff that we know. Like, if you were just like, hey, new Pokemon Legends, new Metroid Prime, Xenoblade Chronicles X Remaster, and Mario Kart, brand new Mario Kart, you'd be like, that's a really fucking good year. Like, just those things on its own. And those are things that we know. And you think about it, if the Switch does actually come out in June, you figure Mario Kart will be a launch title. You probably will get something else. Pretty much every month after that. New Mario, Zelda remaster, XYZ. There's a rumor too that they've been sitting on a completed Fire Emblem game again for a while. And I think it's like, when I say like this rumor's been around for a while, like, it's old. It's older than Fire Emblem Engage, supposedly, that they've been sitting on a remake of a Super Nintendo Fire Emblem game.
That's pretty fucking cool if it's true.
Yeah. So and there's even some like evidence that supports that too, because of the way that they number the Fire Emblem games, like in the
Oh, I
software.
remember this
Mhm.
rumor. Yeah.
There is a missing Fire Emblem game between Engage and whatever came before. Oh, Three Houses.
Mm.
Which is supposedly a remake of one of the best Fire Emblem games, which I've never played because it never came out here officially, which is one of the Super Nintendo ones.
Mm-mm.
So if that's true, that's a big deal. Definitely a big deal for Japanese game player. And yeah, I think that they, like I said, I think they have themselves set up for a really good year. They did even say that NSO is going to carry over. So like
It's great
those
because I
things.
have so many digital titles that I need to be
Oh
able
yeah.
to play.
Yeah, and I think actually too, that was kind of one of the questions we had last week was like, well, it's going to be backwards compatible. Is there going to be any issue with the store? And obviously, if
Yeah.
NSO carries over, probably not. So, yeah, so that's all good. The only thing that I think is maybe like it's not really a good or bad or indifferent, just kind of a question mark,
Mm-hmm.
uh, is what it needs for storage. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so
I mean,
there's
I would expect it just to be, you know,
So the speculation is that it will still use micro SD cards.
okay.
Makes sense. But they
Mm-hmm.
think that there's some speculation it may need some of the faster ones. So
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
think
why
is
don't we
what
just do SSDs then? Like that'd just be a much better option.
but SSDs are larger, heavier, and require more power.
Incorrect. You can get tiny SSDs that are half SSDs that are what run inside of the Steam Deck.
Okay.
Those things
But
are like
but
very. They're like okay, so like if you put two micro SD cards right next to each other,
uh-huh.
that's the size of a half SSD.
Yeah,
They're not big at all.
that's still larger than a micro SD card. Like
It is.
I think everything I
It's
said
like
was still
okay,
true.
okay, yeah, okay, yeah, okay, all right. You're right about that. What I was trying to say was like incorrect about it, like taking up more power. They're more power. They're like power efficient. They're not like as zappy as like a full size SSD. That's what I thought you were gonna go into like the full size SSD. I
Oh
was
yeah, no.
going to go into
I
that and
know they
tell
make
you like
portable
they make
SSDs.
the ones
But
that are
like
like in the Steam Deck, for instance, and those
oh
would be
yeah.
really good for something like this.
I'm just
They
saying
wouldn't take up that much power, and then they're fairly cheap to get. You can get them for like $100 for like a whole terabyte. So it's like
yeah, it's not unreasonable, but just knowing how Nintendo is with those kind of things, like they're gonna go for like battery life's gonna be important. They're gonna want
yeah,
to make that as efficient as possible.
yeah, that's true.
Because it also because the other thing is too like that that battery life that you conserve all goes into better gameplay, better graphics. So it's like they want to make it as efficient as possible. So I mean the SD cards make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But it just the question is, what speed are they going to need? There's someone just announced a micro SD card for the Switch 2, I think today. I think it was Lenovo.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it's a 1 terabyte. I think it's Express, which is I think it's the faster speed one, like up to
Okay.
900 megabytes a second or whatever, compared to the standard, which I think is like around like 100 to 200 megabytes a second. So the question is, does it need the faster speeds? Don't know. There was also a rumor that popped up on Reddit, TBD, how true it is, but not super far fetched. But they
Mhm.
did say that, like from if this is to be believed, that the Switch 2, because of the speed that the card reader is, may actually have to install more than say like on the previous system. So it'd be interesting to see how that all
Mm,
ends up playing out.
okay.
Um, may end up being a nothing burger. Who knows? So, but yeah, we'll see. Like I said, but at least until April, it seems like things are pretty promising. So, also too, other rumors, kind of stuff that's coming up Nintendo wise. Supposedly, there's still a real Nintendo Direct next month, like as has been tradition for forever. So, just to kind of fill out the rest of the Switch lineup for the beginning of the year. Um, Makes sense. Obviously, they have we do know they have Switch games still coming out. We just talked about Xenoblade. It's been March. We know that Pokemon Legends and Metroid Prime 4 are all still slated for the Switch, as we know. So I would expect probably updates on those. and also probably some more filler stuff. I honestly, I really think that Prime 2 and 3 are going to be released this year on the Switch. So we will see. Um, but yeah, so that's coming down the pipeline as well. Also, update for a rumor that I talked about recently as well, that Star Fox Adventures remake. Um, I've also heard an alternate version of the rumor that it may actually be a new Star Fox Adventures, which would be interesting. So be interesting to see how that ends up coming out too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I honestly, I was thinking about it. I'm like, that actually might be, if you have the right team doing, like, I think the concept of Star Fox Adventures, where you
Yeah.
kind of like can go between like land and air and kind of explore like more of an open world, actually could be a really cool way to do Star Fox if you do it right. Uh, so I think in the right, if it's real, if it's in the right team's hands, that could be really cool. But who knows? We will see.
Okay.
Um, I think that's all the Nintendo stuff I have to say right now.
All right. Let's head
Mhm.
over to Xbox real quick because they had
Okay.
a developer direct today.
Yes, I heard. I didn't really
They
get to see what all they announced, but I did see that it existed.
Okay, so let's start with the first thing that they decided to announce.
Mm-hmm.
Ninja Gaiden 4.
Oh yes, I did
Just
see that.
just straight off the rip, they announced Ninja Gaiden 4. They showed it. It looks really clean. You play as, similar to Bayonetta 3, you play as multiple characters. You play as the guy who is like the Hayabusa's up against, and you also play as Hayabusa to see both the stories from each one of their points of view, that sort of deal. It's like in a very cyberpunky world from the looks of it. Like there's entire like segments where you're like grinding on like monorails in like the sky that are like like molding around you and everything and turning into like gigantic like fucking what's the best way to describe it, like roller coasters almost. You're like jumping back and forth between the different rails and shit. It looked really clean. It looked really good. There's a lot of new moves and a lot of other moves that are carrying over from the past games. But I do want to also mention pretty crazy. Alongside that, they announced Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which is a fully remade version of Ninja Gaiden 2 in Unreal Engine 5, updated for modern consoles, and like with all the content of the past games, plus a bunch of new content and new characters that you can play as. And the Ninja Gaiden 4 releases in the fall, so that's releasing this year, and Ninja Gaiden Black 2 releases today.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I actually am going to install it right after this. It's all on Game Pass. Both of them are, obviously. But yeah, so that was confirmed. That was pretty fucking cool.
That's awesome.
I'm very excited to sit down and play that. Both have also already been announced for PS5 and PC. So they got Steam pages up, and they also have PS5 pages up. So everyone can play it. So great fucking news for everybody. More Ninja Gaiden players, the better. Great fucking game. Moving on from that, we then had them hop over to South of Midnight, which I think this game looks fucking incredible. I'm just gonna say it. They showed us a little bit of the story elements of the game. Apparently, like you and your mom are trying to evacuate during like a hurricane or something, and the house gets washed away, and then you awaken to some kind of powers in a new land during this storm, and you're like, there's a bunch of like corrupted like creatures like from the south and whatnot, like crocodiles and shit like that. And it has a very you ever seen the movie Coraline?
Oh
It has
no,
like
I haven't.
oh, okay.
I know of it. I've seen like
Paranorman,
I know of it. The trailers
any of the things by Leica Studios. Like you ever seen like Paranorman or any of those? You know how they do like the stop motion shit? Like
I'm familiar with like what I just never actually sat down and watched the movie.
That's like the general idea of this with a very like southern theme to it. I think it looks really good. Like this game looks like it would be a lot of fun. It kind of feels like a kind of like action hack and slash game, but you also get like abilities that allow you to go and traverse the land better. So it's got some of those Metroid elements to it and whatnot. I think this looks awesome. This one was announced to be coming out in April. So we got like a big deep dive into that, and we got to see some gameplay, and it looked fucking great. Moving on from that, we then went to Expeditions 33, which is a game from a French studio called Sandfall Interactive. I believe that's the company name. I think they are a new company. I think this is their first game. Let me check. Yeah, I believe this is their first game. Yes, and Expedition 33 is a unique turn-based RPG. It feels and looks kind of like Lost Odyssey or Final Fantasy, the way the game is like made. But I really like the plot, and I think that's the coolest part of this game. So the plot of Expedition 33, and I gotta get this right because I want to make sure I get everything right about it, because it's a very unique plot. So
okay,
you lead a member on this expedition. You lead the members of Expedition 33 on their quest to destroy the paintress so that she can never paint death again. And the way this works is every year the paintress chooses a number, and anyone that is of that age will die. So they're trying to put a stop to her killing people. So, like, for instance, like, the number may be like 16, and everyone that turns 16 next year fucking dies instantly on their 16th birthday. That's the way the game works, essentially. That's the plot of the game. It exists in like a French like alt history world, and I don't know, it's got like a lot of really unique creatures and unique world aspects, and it's just a very interesting idea for a game. And I think it looks beautiful, and I think it looks like it will be very, very good. They even have like overworld maps, like old school Final Fantasy overworld maps, where like your big character's walking on the map and everything, and then you get like the turn-based battle. They even have like that aspect of it. So harkening back to like old JRPGs, I dig this. This game looks great. And this game releases April 24th. So another game releasing in April. Awesome game. And then we had the fourth game, and I'm just gonna say right now, this is my most looked forward to game coming out this year, easily, over anything else. Because half the things on our list of games that are coming out this year, I don't believe are coming out this year. But even if they did, this is still like top of the charts. Like I will do this real quick. I don't think GTA 6 is coming out this year.
Oh no, I don't think so.
I think Pokemon Legends ZA might get delayed because they've had enough backlash that they'll probably want to get that, straight with all the shit that they've been given. And then on top of that, with the whole Power World thing going on right now, I think that might get delayed as well into 2026 instead of 2025. That's my opinion. But the game I think
that's totally going to come out. Wolf, I actually sorry, I forgot about this.
I'm not going over anymore.
There is a Pokemon Direct next month for sure.
Okay. So well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, and that's fine. But my main point is Doom the Dark Ages looked fucking amazing. Oh my god, it looked so good. So every complaint I had about Doom Eternal, which is that like there was far too much like platforming and this, that, and the other, and like it feels kind of like it took too many steps away from what Doom truly is. Doom the Dark Ages looked at me and fucking slapped me in the face and said, "All right, bet I'm gonna fix that shit," and then it did. That's what this game looks like. You got wide open world areas. You've got fucking massive amounts of enemies to fight. You've got huge arenas. You've got massive like fights that take place inside of like mechs and on dragons and shit. Dude, this game looked incredible. It looked like they basically realized, hey, let's go back to what made Doom, which is strafing and shooting and being fucking cool. and then they did it, and that's what this game looks like. They also are doing some things which I normally don't touch on these sort of things, but I do think the way that they are approaching this one is very unique. To the point where when Katie was watching, she looked at me and was like, maybe I should try this one. And I was like, oh, okay, fuck yeah, go for it. And the way they are approaching it is you can control the game speed, the enemy projectile speed, and like all different kinds of things to tweak the difficulty to your liking exactly if you're like completely new to the game.
Okay.
So it gives you a lot of accessibility options while still maintaining everything that made Doom. So you have the option also to go the complete opposite direction. So where someone could turn down the projectile speed to 50% and have a easier way of playing the game and, get used to it, I could turn it up to 200. And that's fucking cool also.
Yeah. I think Doom Dark Ages looks amazing. I didn't even see the stuff from today.
Oh my god, you have to see today's stuff. You have to see today's stuff. They showed like a massive open world area where it wasn't like open world, but it's like a huge, massive like sandbox where you can just go anywhere to like fight the monsters the way you want and get around like this big open area, and there's like a gate that's like blocked off and everything, and you have to go and destroy these certain things to like drop the gate so you can get into their defenses and shit, and like you just kind of decide which way you're going to go about doing that. And then they showed after that like a gigantic demon from hell came up, and then like you had to like get back and get in your mech, and you had to like fight it in a fucking giant mech battle. But like you could use your like Gatling guns as the mech, and it was just nuts. It was fucking nuts.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out because it sounds like it could be very cool.
You also have 3 different melees, and what do you call those? Glory kills are no longer canned animation. You can do them from any side, and they are done by the way you execute them instead of being a canned animation now. So you can do it with your shield, which is actually your chainsaw. You can do it with your flail because you have a flail, and you can do it with your boot. And those also all work as melee weapons as well. It's fucking cool. It looks so good. This game blew me away. I'm so excited for this game.
Yeah, it's coming
and they gave us a release date, May 15th, which was the leaked release date from a French website last week. So that was confirmed to be true.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Yeah, because it's not that long. It's like what, 4 months. Yeah, very soon. So much easier when the games are like announced closer to when they come out.
Yeah, I noticed that. Like, I don't want to do this, but I have to do this, right? Can you tell me one PS5 title that's releasing this year with a release date? Because I can't, and it really upsets me. Yeah, because I can't, and it upsets me like greatly. Yeah, you're gonna be here a while.
I know. I really can't think of anything.
There are none. They haven't had any kind of showcase. They haven't had any kind of like roadmap, and like it's really upsetting because there's a lot of good games that release on PS5. Yeah. There's a lot of great games that are on that system. The problem is I feel like right now, I mean, like I guess you could say I guess we have Doom the Dark Ages, Ninja Gaiden 4, and Expedition 33, and maybe South of Midnight. I'm not sure if that was announced for PS5. But anyway, that would be the 4 games we know about on PS5 this year, and they're all from Xbox, and that's really upsetting because I want to know.
Sad. It's kind of wild, actually. Yeah, no, I mean,
like, where's Wolverine?
There's a rumored, what was it, like Wolverine or
where's
something?
Where's Venom? Where's a release date for GTA 6? Like anything. Just give us anything. I feel like now that this has come out and we saw like some pretty decent titles both announced and shown off that will be releasing like with release dates, these other companies, Nintendo and PlayStation, they got to get out here and they got to show us something with some concrete release dates also. I'm not saying that like Microsoft is better or anything, but I do feel like they are better at presenting when a game will release and not releasing like information about it way too early. I'll give some examples of where they have been. We don't know when the hell Perfect Dark is coming out, and we don't know when the hell Fable is coming out. Supposedly
Yeah.
Fable's this year, and we don't have
Mhm.
information on that yet. But I do feel that they're very good about giving you a release date or showing you something and then just being like, and here's when it comes out. And that's a really good thing to be able to like see, because I feel like a lot of games nowadays have gone back to the we're just gonna give you a trailer and get excited for it, and who knows when the fuck you're getting it. And that's a big issue. That's
See,
a really big issue.
no, I agree with you. I definitely Sony's more egregious with some of that. I would say. I'd
Like
say
I
Nintendo generally has been pretty good with it over the years. So like they just like there are some outliers. Like obviously Metroid Prime 4 was announced
yeah
with Switch, and that we're just getting it now, and we finally just got a release year.
yeah
But I mean, really, it's almost uncommon for Nintendo because around that era is kind of when they switched to just like the only announcing things like maybe 6 months out, unless it's like a really big like
yeah
marquee title like Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. They might announce those like maybe a year or so out. But
hmm
you think about it, like it's like a lot of they even like shadow drop stuff like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 or X, sorry, like the remaster. Like, yep, it's coming in March. It, like didn't come in a direct, just kind of like here you are. It's less than 6 months away. I get excited. Um, so and they usually you know Nintendo's going to announce things for the most part because it's usually with their 3 Nintendo
yeah
Directs a year: February, June, September, and that's kind of like here's the stuff for the next 6 months. Be excited, like yeah. But usually everything
yeah
comes with the release date, comes with a tight window. Things usually, if it's announced in a direct, it usually comes out, within like 6 months of that time. Um, but I agree with you. It's so much better. I mean, I like speculating about stuff. I like being excited about stuff that's kind of like far out, but there's a point where it's definitely too early. Like with Last of Us 2. Too early. Like that game was announced way too early.
yeah.
Um
And like, again, we were just talking about Wolverine. That shit was announced way too early. Also,
was it
granted, I
announced though,
did
or was that leaked?
that was announced.
Okay.
There was a trailer for it about 4 years ago. Let me see when the first trailer
Oh
was.
Jesus.
Wolverine trailer 3 years ago.
Okay.
2021
Yeah, too early.
is what it says. So 2021 is when the Wolverine game announcement came out, and we know the most about it from the leak because people were able to reconstruct it on PC and make almost a fully playable demo.
Yeah.
So like Sony has told us nothing, and that is pretty unacceptable, to be completely
Yeah.
honest.
Because at that point, I kind of felt the same way with Nintendo and the Switch 2 leaks. Like,
Well,
there's
it's not
definitely a
even
point where you have to like take the narrative back and own
yeah
the leak. Like, you
yeah
just like, yep, sorry, this leaked, but you know what? It is coming. It's coming at this time, and here's a trailer to hold you over until
yes
we're ready to give you more information. Like
yes
that.
exactly.
Like I really I think that's my like leaks happen. Like I get it, and it
hmm
sucks
hmm
when you have these big things, but like when it happens, like just kind of roll into it and own it. Like don't be like, oh, there's nothing to see here. Like I don't know. I feel like Nintendo let the Switch hardware stuff go on too long. But I guess also on the flip side too, with some of those things, like it's as annoying as leaks can be sometimes too. Like you also think about it, like we are definitely more of like the niche audience. Like the general population really doesn't have any fucking clue.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
know, I know. But I also think like when you sit down, right, and you like talk with your friends
Mhm.
who aren't big gamers, and they tell you, "Hey, you see those Switch leaks?" That's when it's a little bit too far. That's when
Yeah.
it's gone a little bit too far.
Oh yeah.
And I experienced that multiple times when the leaks started coming out in like December and like
Mhm.
November.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I do think there is a point where like you said, you just need to own up to it, and you just need
Yeah.
to be like, this is what we have, this is what's going on.
Yeah. Well,
Because
especially
like
too, because the
to
other
just
thing
keep
is,
holding back and like allowing other people to form the narrative, that could also like damage your reputation for
oh
what the
yeah.
actual console is,
Mhm. And the other
or
thing is
what
too
have
is
you.
it stops I saw this. It was from your friend Jason Shearer actually is who pointed
Oh
this out,
God,
and
fuck Jason
but
Schreier.
it was a good point because he's like the other thing with them waiting so long to like officially unveil it was third parties couldn't announce anything. Like now that it's official, they can actually like announce things for it, which they really couldn't before. So yeah, so I mean it is good that it's out there, but yeah, it just kind of kind of had limited what they were able to do. But um yeah, like it's just I do agree. There's definitely a point where it's like I said, roll into it, just own it, and just go. Like
Yeah,
um,
it needs to happen, and I do feel like that. To be completely honest, that's probably what Insomniac should have done when all the leaks, like their Giga leak, basically
100%.
happened. They really should have been like, all right, so here is your like general roadmap for what we're working on. Here's some concept art. Here's some general ideas. Just do like one big presentation and then be like, we'll update you when we have more information. And then like do like that. That's what they should have done because that's how you get around, all these leakers and people that are dissecting the game. Even today, like I see a video uploaded from 2 weeks ago where someone completely rebuilt the game on Windows 11 with HDR and ray tracing, and like you shouldn't have that be people's introduction to your game. That shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be able to pull up the biggest piracy site right now and play Wolverine.
Yeah.
I should have information that's given to me by the actual company more so than pirates. That's what I'm saying. Like that is insane.
Yep, exactly. I'll agree. Yeah. Anything else to talk about next?
No, I got nothing else for Xbox. I'm gonna play Ninja Gaiden 2 Black tonight, which is I don't know. Have you ever played Ninja Gaiden 2?
I don't think I played any of the new Ninja Gaidens, to be honest.
Okay, so I'll tell you this: Ninja Gaiden Black, the first one that came out on Xbox, was so difficult that they had when they originally released it, they had to make another version because people couldn't beat it. I'm not even kidding. Ninja Gaiden 2 is one of the hardest games I've ever played, and Ninja Gaiden 3 is difficult for a completely different reason, and it's mostly the camera. But it got better with Razor's Edge. I really like the Ninja Gaiden games. They're very good. That's all. I'm seeing character action games again. They're so awesome. Like we got Phantom Blade Zero that released a trailer also, which is the PlayStation 5 exclusive like hack and slash game that is character action. And they confirmed it's not a Souls-like, which I love Souls-likes, but I love me some Devil May Cry. I love me some Bayonetta. I love me some fucking Ninja Gaiden. So I'm like super excited for that game as well too.
Yeah, it'll be hopefully ends up doing what it needs to be doing. So see. I'm sure it will.
I mean the trailer looked great. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah. Anything else to talk about?
No, I don't think I have anything else. I think I've given you all I can now.
Okay.
I think I made up for my missed day.
Oh, well, we're just happy. Happy you're feeling better. So
I'm not.
All right, let's wrap this up so you can get back to I don't know whatever sick things you were doing.
Fucking dying? Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for listening to us tonight. Don't forget to find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to reach out to us, you can send us an email at gamecrunchcast@gmail.com. And you can check out all of our old episodes at game-crunch.com. Brandon.
Hello.
Any final thoughts?
No. I'm excited for Game of the Year next week.
I
wanted to do it this week. I'm so sorry I couldn't.
Okay, I think I'm even more excited. I think I'm more excited for this year than I think I have been for the last couple of years.
So
there's a lot of really good shit to talk about this year.
I want to ask if I can do this because I can't nominate these in most of the categories. Can I just give you guys some indie titles to be on the lookout for the future during our Game of the Year? Because I played a lot of good indie titles, but they don't fit into any of the categories. And they're very interesting that I would really like to recommend. Yeah, so I'm thinking of throwing some of those in there, but I don't have them in any categories. I do have a few in some categories already, but like it's really difficult to like slot some of the ones I played.
Yeah.
in
I
there.
mean, there are some indie games already in some of the categories too. Yeah, like
There
'cause
are,
even I
there
put
are.
some in there. Yeah. Like I know I put Balatros in there. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes is in there.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I put Anton Blast in there. I put Mullet Mad Jack in there. Put Still Wakes the Deep. That game's fucking incredible. Definitely
Hmm.
play that if you can.
Yeah.
But like, there's other ones I would like to talk about, but it's kind of difficult. So yeah,
Yeah. Well,
we'll
I'm
we'll
sure
get
it'll come
we'll
up
get to that.
as we
We'll get
talk.
to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah, but definitely no problem with any of that.
Hell
So,
yeah.
all right. Well, I guess on that note, my name is Mike Anastasia. Invite me online on Clash Penguin there or in favorite gaming console. Until next week, game on.
Game on.
Little toys on the shelf, they shine. Collector's dreams in plastic so fine. Tap them once, the magic's here. Amiibo, bring them near. Mario jumps and Link's got gear. Animal Crossing friends appear. Each one brings a story bright. Amiibo, light the night. Tap the figure, watch them go. In my game they steal the show. Every world from here they grow. Amiibo, magic starts to flow. Deep in dungeon or racing fast, these little toys, they're made to last. Memories from days of old. Amiibo, stories told. Touch the base, the game's alive. Each moment big, they arrive. Sky and sea and land we see. Amiibo, set them free. Tap the figure, watch them go. In my game they steal the show. Every world from here they grow. Amiibo, magic starts to flow. Deep in dungeon, constant go. In my game they steal the show. Every world from here they grow. Amiibo, magic starts the flow.
But yeah, no, so Civ 7 it is gonna be like cross play, cross save, at least from what I read. So I was like,
Nice.
oh, maybe I'll buy the Mac version of it and then just wait for probably what will eventually become like the Switch 2 version. But then
Yeah.
but I really like the portability of it, and even if it's kind of like a lesser version,
Mm-hmm.
if it's anything like the Xbox and the PlayStation 5 versions, A, a Switch 2 version likely will come, and B, on those other two systems, if you buy one, you get the other one for free. So like
Yep.
it does have like free upgrades like
Xbox
between the
really
platforms.
sold that when they first like started their developer thing. They were like,
Mhm.
you purchase it on Xbox, you have access to it on your PC, and
Yeah, that's nice.
save support. And it's
Mhm.
like for any of the games they showed today, and I was like, that's really cool. So I could like buy Doom Dark Ages and then play it on PC, and like everything would carry over, and I could hop back over to the Xbox when I want to go chill in the living room or whatever. I was
Yeah.
like, that's nice. I mean, like I already knew it existed, but to see
Uh-huh.
them like heavily leaning into that now,
Mhm.
it's like that's a good place for them to like go with it since they
Yeah.
are essentially third party now
Mhm.
anyway, you know?
Yeah, no, it's kind of strange where it's like you have almost Microsoft and Sony, I think at this point are like polar opposites. Where it's like you have Microsoft who's basically like they've almost fully converted into like a third party. They have a platform, but it's not ideal at this point because they've started putting their stuff on everything, but they have
Mhm.
a really strong first party development like studios now, like which is something they've
Yeah.
been lacking for the entire time since they've existed.
Mhm.
And then you have Sony on the other hand, who has the better selling hardware,
Yep.
and it's more universally like enjoyed. But like for some reason, they can't get their fucking developers together and can't put things out. Like we didn't even talk about it, but there's all those rumors of all the canceled games from Sony over the last couple
The
weeks.
10 canceled games. Oh, and the fucking the guy that left PlayStation that just said straight up, the reason why we make so many remakes is so we can afford to make the new games. That's also the reason why we've been porting everything faster and faster to PC. Because we need the money. Like, he literally said that. He said, we need the money to fund these new titles. And it will get closer and closer to eventually it just coming out at the same time. So it was like pretty much the guy was like confirming day and date is coming.
Yeah. But the problem is on Sony's side of things, and we've kind of talked about it before, but it's like they're really mismanaging like the projects that they're having their teams work on and how they're investing the money. Like Concord obviously never should have had that much money invested into it.
No, absolutely
that was crazy. And supposedly the stuff that they were canceling was like what was it? Like a God of War like live service game, like
God of War live service game, a Horizon Zero Dawn MMO, a Twisted Metal games as a service game, the multiplayer to The Last of Us, there's so much. The multiplayer Spider-Man game.
Yeah, it's just like
there's so much.
Are you wasting all this money for? Yeah, like you honestly would have been better spent investing those money in like a Bloodborne remake or something. Like all they need.
So I think they've learned now, and hopefully they've learned now that all people want are smaller games that cost less money and are really fun, like Astrobot. Yeah. Just make it. Just make games like that. Not the exact same game. Don't fall into the same fucking trap you've been falling into, Sony.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, if you're still recording, you got to throw this shit in there because I feel like it's got to. Like, don't fall in the same fucking trap you've been falling into, Sony. Don't just keep remaking Astrobot or making the same Astrobot over and over and over again, but make more games similar to that style. Make another Ape Escape. Make another Medieval. Make something like Wipeout. Do these smaller titles that don't cost hundreds of millions of dollars and release those during droughts so that people have something to fucking play on your console.
And that's exactly what
it's as simple as
been doing so well this last generation. That's worked so well for them because they have these smaller teams doing these remakes and remasters. And instead of releasing them and setting like, oh, Metroid Prime 2 Remastered's coming out, in 8 months or whatever, they sit on it until they have a hole. And then they're like, yeah, that shit's coming out next month. Like, or it's shadow dropping with the direct to fill a hole that they have that month. They use those things strategically.
There has been nothing since Astrobot. There has been nothing on the PlayStation since Astrobot. And that's been a pretty long fucking time. Like that's
been the problem.
Pretty unacceptable.
The systems come out. They have like one reasonable game like a year, and that's it. Yeah. And the other thing that I think the other thing that's really hurting Sony a lot too. And we're really diving down the hole here, but it's like they don't seem to realize that not every game needs to be like a 70-hour AAA game.
I know. I had so much fun, and I put maybe 15 hours to 100% Astrobot.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's all I needed. I got a lot of fun out of that game. I enjoyed every single bit of it. We had that discussion earlier this year where I said a shorter game where there's not a lot of fluff and everything is killer with no filler is better than a bunch of bullshit hours worth of stuff that I don't give a fuck about. Yeah. And that's Astrobot in a nutshell. That is just Astrobot. Astrobot was that shorter game that took me between 12 and 15 hours to complete. I was 100% at the time, but now there's a whole bunch of new levels I haven't got to play yet because of the holidays. And at the time, I had my fun with the game. I was done. It was a great game.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. That's how I needed to feel. That's all you need for a game. You don't need something to keep you invested. You just need something that will sell you a lot of copies, and then you move on to the next thing that you could sell a lot of copies of. And you don't have to invest millions of dollars into it. It's not that hard. And you know what the funniest fucking part about the Team Asobi game, Astrobot, is? Because it's made up of developers from Sony Japan Studios that Sony fucking canned. All the people that they fired came together, made a new studio, and then made a game that got Game of the Year. Fuck you, Sony, for being so stupid that you initially fired them. Fuck you so much.
But it's true, and I mean, honestly, killer no filler is like that. That really is the way that they need to approach it. Like, there's definitely like that tight 12-hour experience is like
exactly
perfect.
Like, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this. This is gonna spoil something that we talked about earlier before we started the podcast. But I've been playing Metaphor, a lot of Metaphor. I have 55 hours in the game. And if you look at my like outside of the game save file, it's like 65. So like that's just from game save file. So that's like reloads and this, that, and the other, and that sort of thing. That game is so incredibly long. It's so insanely long. I probably have like another 10, 15 hours left. That game is not all killer. I don't feel that way. The story is 100% carrying it, but I still love that game. But that is a very specific type of game being made by a very specific type of company that knows how to make those games. That's an Atlas game. You've played Persona 5. You know how their games are. You know how they are created. Sony doesn't need to focus on that. If they want to get out one like big title like their Last of Us or a Spider-Man or whatever, cool. But don't make every fucking game like that. Give us things in between that are smaller, shorter experiences that we can all enjoy for maybe even a lower price point, and then that would be fantastic. Like it's as simple as that. That's all we want. We want fucking games. It's really not that hard. Like I loved Rise of Ronin also, which was another Sony title from last year, only exclusive to them. And I also love Stellar Blade. I put 66 hours into Rise of Ronin, but that's Souls-like, understandable. I put like 40 or 50 hours into Stellar Blade, another Souls-like, understandable. Those games have earned that right to be that long. Not every single game needs to be that length, though, and that's like, I don't know, man. I just want more Wipeout and Ape Escape and Parappa the Rapper and fucking. I want those games back. I want that Sony back. I want the Sony that felt imaginative and like it was unique and different and weird. I miss weird Sony. Weird Sony is the fucking best. And I feel like we haven't seen weird Sony in a really long time.
No, we have not. Everything with them is like. Well, actually, I was gonna say everything with them is super safe. It's actually it's not quite true, but like they really are just going for like whatever's biggest in gaming, and that's what we're gonna do, and everything's gonna be AAA.
Everything's AAA open world, blah 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 bullshit. It's like, I don't know, man. I want my Killer 7s. I want my fucking I want my Ape Escapes. I want like Medieval. I want these kinds of games again. I want something that just feels like it's a game-ass game, if you know what I mean.